Thank y'all for joining us tonight, AfroLatinx Travel. I am Dash, and this is Javier. Say hi. Say hi, Javier.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Javier Wallace here, one part of AfroLatinx Travel. Glad to be here this evening with this amazing panel.
Yes.
Group of people. Sorry, not panel. Group of people.
And once again, I guess, you know how there's a thing where it's like, how long do you say Happy New Year? You know, like everyone has the different times. And so I'm like, how long after you got your PhD do you say congratulations? But I guess we're just gonna say it till the end of the year. So another congratulations to Dr. Wallace or
God.
Dr. Wayase.
Yes, thank you so much. I like the Dr. Wayase. It's so fitting of today's conversation. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
2 times for the Dr. Wayase.
Wait, where's the air horn? All right, I have to cue up the air horn. But in the meantime, no, because I actually have a button on my phone. That's on Evelyn Alvarez because she's the main DJ person. But we have our amazing panel tonight. We have a couple slides to just frame and ground the conversation. Let me make, well, actually, no, I have to make you a co-host afterward, Javier. It's just not giving me the option. Just to ground our conversation. So let me do this whole share screen. And so you have entered into our, present, there we go. Into our Black Costa Rican month panel chats. If you did not sign up for it, please leave. If you are here on your own volition, please stay. Or you can leave, I really don't care actually. But this is our chat on, not really the month, because I mean, August is Black Costa Rican month or Afro-Costa Rican month since 2013. Actually, I think I might have to make you a host, Javier, because I put people in the waiting room, but they might just have to wait. Since 2013, August has been Afro-Costa Rican month. And the thing is, though, is that everybody on this panel is Black 24/7, 365. And so there doesn't need to be a designated month for these people to live their negritude. And so we have Angeley Crawford Gibb. Where are you? Okay, there you are. I'm going to do your little bio intro. So Angeley Crawford Gibb is an educator, orator, and your favorite fat hot gal, tia prima. Her work centers on identity development with a specific focus on adolescent ethnic identity development and language. She is currently a high school resource support coordinator in the Maryland area and is committed to holding the babies down in all ways. You can find her in these internet streets, doling out love, affirmations, truth, and virtual hugs. I added that last part. Say hi to everybody, Ange.
Hey, family. How are you? Oh, I got some cousins here for real, though. Hey, cousin. Hi, primo. What me straight, son? What me, Regina? Okay,
yeah. And we have Natasha Gordon-Chipembere, who has been a professor of African diasporic literature for over 20 years. She has taught in classrooms from South Africa to New York to Costa Rica. She was an associate professor of English at the City University of New York, CUNY, for 12 years. Big up to CUNY. As a scholar on African enslavement, she focused her first book on Sarah Baartman, aka the Hottentot Venus, in representation and Black womanhood, the legacy of Sarah Baartman, published by Palgrave in 2011. It is now required reading for first-year college students in South Africa. Gordon-Chipembere writings has also been published in Essence magazine, along with a monthly series, Musings from an Afro-Costa Rican in the Tico Times. And so there is a ton more things in that bio, but you will discover more and more as we talk about everything we're going to talk about tonight. And then we have Tanisha Swaby Oh, I'm sorry. No, say hi to the people. Say hi to the people.
Hello, everyone. Peace.
And then we have Tanisha Swaby, who is a psychologist, Afrofeminist activist, researcher, and trainer on organizational diversity and inclusion strategies. She is a co-founder of the Black Lives Matter movement in Costa Rica and a member of the board of directors of the Centro de Mujeres AfroCostarricense, or Afro-Costa Rican Women's Center, an NGO that has been dedicated to promoting the human rights of Afro-descendant people in Latin America and the Caribbean for over 25 years. She has been a lecturer on anti-racism and intersectionality in multiple academic, institutional, and political advocacy forums at the local and international levels, including the University of Costa Rica, Texas A&M University, and she's also a seasoned conference producer, having developed over dozens of international programs addressing talent management and inclusion best practices. So hey, say hi to the people then.
Hola. Hey, thanks everyone for being here. I see some of my people here. So hey, Victoria, Maria Jose, all my Costa Rican people that went to the Escuelita Antirracista in Costa Rica. So people connecting to listening in, we always appreciate you. And happy to be here with Angie, Natasha, Javier, and Dash.
Yeah, bullet. So
I just want to say this real quick though, and this is how you know que estamos entre familia, right? I have quickly went from Angeley to Angie. I just like in the span of 15 minutes, people in the chat, whopping Angie. Excuse me. For the purposes of this evening, I'm Angeley. Thank you.
No, I mean, that is relevant, and that is definitely what this conversation is about time and space, boundaries, and asserting ourselves. And
okay, I'm joking though. I'm joking.
But it's at all times that's always in play. Please believe.
Right.
And so that's the environment that we want to foster, that we want to create liberatory spaces. And so if Ange decides that ain't nobody gonna call her Ange no more, then we just have to respect that. And so I have here a couple pictures of some Costa Rican figures and Javier is doing a close-up because he has a specific experience with Jose Santa Maria, pictured here, the statue. And Natasha has an entire body of work around the Señora de los Ángeles, or La Negrita, as she's referred to, one of the many Black Madonnas actually in the Americas. And so this is on the what is that, left? On the left, I had to do the L. I was like, what side is this? On the left, this is a snippet from the Center for Afro-Costa Rican Women that Tanisha is part of. And it shares a little of the history of Afro-Costa Rican month, where August 3rd was the day of the Pardos. And Pardos historically is a term that was used for mixed race people. It could also mean Afro-descendants. And so this was the day that they celebrated their day, August 3rd. Also within August, you have the birthday of Marcus Garvey. As we know, he was the founder of the United Negro Improvement Association, which had its headquarters in Limon, Costa Rica. And so I have some of the people that we want to lift up in this conversation. Señora Eulalia Bernard passed away recently. And so Ibae, and a few other Afro-Costa Rican women. We have featured two of Tanisha's family members, Miss Shirley.
I was just gonna say, I'm like, that's half of my family right there.
I'm like, if someone's name is Shirley, you have to say Miss Shirley. You can never say Shirley. You have to say Miss Shirley. But Miss Shirley, Rotundamente Negra, and other poems, and Vice President Epsi Campbell. In this particular news cutout is about getting Cocori banned from the Costa Rican schools, which Tanisha actually brought a lawsuit against Costa Rica when she was 10 years old. So as Angeley says, we are not new to this. We are true to this. And if people do not know about Cocori, it is a very anti-Black children's story within the context of Costa Rican national imagination, or I should say white national imagination. And so I just wanted to, the next couple slides is just sharing a little about the panelists tonight. And we talk about naming, and this is exactly the name of Angeley's series, Naming Ourselves in Love and Liberation. And so this is a 3-minute little video of her ongoing project that has been in production 5 years ongoing, because this work, the thing is though, this work is never ending. So like, it's deal with it. And so I'm gonna just press play and shut up for a second.
Whopping cousins, it's your girl, LaNegraSpeaks, Angeley Crawford Gibb. It is such an amazing, amazing pleasure to be before you. Yo, it's been about 5 years. Yeah, 5 years since the first original Define Black video dropped, and it went viral in an epic, epic way. Every 2 years or so, it goes viral again, and I am consistently amazed by that. But the reason why it keeps hitting, it keeps sticking, is because it resonates with so many of you. Because it did go viral, I realized that the conversation on Latin American identity, but specifically the identity of Afro descendants, needed to be told in public spaces in as many ways as possible. In addition to that, I saw something that I wanted to address. And that was this idea that Afro-Latinidad didn't need to center Blackness. That people that look like me didn't need to be at the forefront of conversations that talked about Afro descendants in Latin America. So I reached out to some of the dopest Black Latin American women that I knew and asked them if they'd be willing to tell their stories, if they would be willing to center their identity, their Blackness in this conversation. Getting these women together was the joy of my life. And as I went through looking at this footage, I was just transported back to that hot ass living room in 2017 where we had to turn the air conditioner off so that it wouldn't be in the video footage. And child, I swear, I had these pretty pink curls. They like, by the end of these videos, they are gone, like gone. But looking at the footage was the joy of my life, honestly, because we laughed, we cried, we called the names of our ancestors into the room with us. And what became really, really clear was that this story wasn't just our own, but it was the story of the women, the Black women and femmes that raised us. This was to matrilineal beauty. This work is about naming ourselves in love and in liberty. And it's okay for things to shift. The work of decolonization is ongoing. None of us come to the work knowing. We are learning. The original name was Mejorando la Raza because at some point I thought maybe the term could be redeemed. We could say, no, somos lo mejor de la raza, but yo, fuck that. It can't be redeemed, and we don't want it. Honestly, we don't. I renamed the project Naming Ourselves in Love and in Liberation, a love story to Black Latin American women, because that's what this is. Look in the coming weeks for us to be dropping more and more footage. It's over 6 hours of laughing, of joking, of loving and living. Come in. I want to invite you into this dinner, into this spread, into this feast, because what we're serving is healing. What we're serving is liberation, and there is no portion control with joy. Eat, heap up your plates, get what you need. If it resonates with you, hold on to it. If it doesn't, that's okay too. But whatever you do, this feast is about healing. It is about liberation. And I want you to eat and eat well.
What lip was that? That was a cute little lipstick there. But the curls fell like within,
it's your girl,
the curls fell within about 10 minutes of the.
The curls absolutely fell within 10 minutes of shooting because it was hot and we were in Brooklyn and it was 95 degrees. Like There was no joy there. Excuse me, there was no joy in my hair. There was love in the room, but my hair did not make it. I know I'm bald, so you know.
And shout out to that lilac wig. That was a crowd pleaser.
It was.
Moving on to Dr. Chipembere's work, tremendous body of work that she has available for free, just for free, like just on the internet for y'all to actually access and read. What's going on? To access and read and benefit your life. These are just a couple excerpts from some of her work. And what I find is really specifically important is the nuances and the layers that Dr. Chipembere provides with the migration of Afro-Costa Ricans from various Caribbean islands to Africans who were enslaved and free within Costa Rica. So this is just some of the information that she provides, and we will be sending a link with resource links after this this panel. And so lastly, before we jump in, is Tanisha's ongoing campaign with Afro-Costa Rican Women's Center. And this is specifically, I mean, it's always important, but in light of the Olympics, where we saw a lot of Black Latin Americans showing out, doing what we do best, just being amazing. This campaign supports Afro-Costa Rican athletes. And so you have some of the athletes that are involved with the mutual aid. You can donate directly to Tanisha's PayPal. And also I will be posting some more mutual aid links at the end of the panel so that you can support all the great work that everyone is doing. So I am going to stop share. And I just want to jump right into this conversation. It's not going to be no type of stuffy panel, you know, with like words that nobody understands. We're going to talk like, come on. We're going to talk about all of your work. And as much as you want to share, what are you working on right now? I want to start with Dr. Gordon-Chipembere, because you have this amazing book that you're working on, and you have this ongoing panel with the Tico Times.
Yes, thank you so much for inviting me to this conversation. I am so honored to be amongst my people. Thank you. Actually on Monday, right? So today is Tuesday, that's yesterday. I signed a book contract. I signed a book contract, y'all. 7 years. Thank you. 7 years in the making, 7 years of research and writing, and really struggling to find someone who can invest in my work, right? Finding an editor, finding a publisher that really wanted to hold up the book that I wrote. It's called Finding La Negrita. And so in many ways, it's a rewriting, it's historical fiction, and it's a rewriting of the 1635 moment and I'm putting this in quotes, of the finding of the Black Madonna, La Negrita, which is La Virgen de los Angeles, the Black Madonna here in Costa Rica. But I actually write it from an Africanist perspective, right? I write it from the perspective of free Blacks and enslaved Blacks, people of Afro descent. And I write it really questioning the idea of, so what if we flip the switch a little bit? What if we looked at it through the lens of Black people and their lives, living and loving and negotiating freedom? And what if we had Black hands that sculpted that particular piece of iconography that has really shaped sort of the religious and nationalistic landscape of Costa Rica, right? Since 1635. And so you know, I'm not sure how Costa Rica is going to take it, but that's all right. That's all right. There's some things, you know, I mean, more than anything else, what I wanted to amplify was the beauty and the complexity of Afro descendant life in Costa Rica in that time period, and really bring it forward. So I signed, it should be out next October, you know, and I'm trying to negotiate. We're working on trying to get it in terms of a Spanish translation, right? So that it can be in the Spanish language world as well, but it will be coming, it'll be published by an independent feminist press in the United States, which was really important to me. And I'm working with an incredible Black woman who gets my work, who really understands the beauty of my characters, because I don't flinch with them. I love them. They're, you know, these incredible Black, strong, you know, flawed human beings who have to engage with this land called Costa Rica. And so that's the work that I'm doing. So it's really recent, but I'm excited to share that work. And so next year, this time, hopefully, you know, we'll all be part of some sort of launch, or we'll be talking about it and reading it.
Thank you so much. That's amazing. And Angeley, Tanisha, feel free to jump in however you want.
I'm gonna let the cousin go.
Okay.
Did you want me to go, cousin? I'm like, I'm
I do
seeing.
want you to go, cousin.
Okay, go. I could go. So as Dash said, this is ongoing work, right? So I have a continuous series of projects. I want to talk about my organization's top project right now, which is around the implementation of a leadership school for Afro-descendant women in Costa Rica. So we're trying to get a group of women that can be formed towards political participation, both at the local and community level, as well as the national level. We've seen a lot of the progress recently happen in the context of at least our legal frameworks of action in Costa Rica. We've seen recently a law around affirmative action. We just saw today the National Day of Afro-Descendant Peoples here, which is August 31st, recognized as a national holiday. And we feel a lot of those progresses have been made because of the participation of Afro-Descendant people in positions of decision-making and power. So we feel that we need to empower a new generation of Afro-Costa Rican women to become leaders in their community, become leaders, as I said, in the national political context. And we're going to be launching this school for education around human rights and political participation for Afro-descendant women. So this is going to be launched hopefully within the context of the next week in our social media at mujeresafrocr.com. So any just young Afro-Costa Rican women, we're actually, I think, going to be open, you know, from 15 years all the way to, you know, ageless limit towards the upper level of that scale. But we're going to be looking at, again, making a group of Afro-Costa Rican women have that projection, have that education, and have that formation that is necessary so that they can actively participate in political spaces in their community. So that's the top project the organization is working on. Dash mentioned a few of the things. We're also, again, doing this fundraising for the Black athletes that are currently or will be participating, are currently classified for those Pan American Games, Pan American Junior Games taking place in Cali, Colombia in December. So we want to make sure that we support them. They need basic things in order to be able to compete. They need, you know, uniforms. They need help with their lodging and their transportation. So we're happy to have any contributions towards making that a reality. We feel that part of the sort of the main manifestation, I would say, of state-sanctioned violence in Costa Rica against Afro-descendant people is that abandonment, systemic abandonment, and people are not just being able to develop themselves in any particular field of action, specifically in the province of Limon, because of this sort of decades-long government abandonment of the province. And we know this is related to systemic racism. So we're trying to make sure that we build up those community networks as well, so we can support these young people. And we understand that sports is also an important, a huge aspect of social mobility in the province of Limon. So we want to make sure that we support the youths there. And we will most likely also be opening a new cycle of our intersectional school that we do, La Escuelita Interseccional, which is a program devoted to sort of dismantling racism from an individual perspective. So we want to take everyone that's looking to learn about sort of systemic injustice in Costa Rica and some of these frameworks around anti-colonialism, to understand how you can be an ally both for specifically Black and Afro-descendant populations, but also for trans peoples. So we're going to be likely launching another series of that towards end of this month, so stay tuned. And I know there's a lot of things happening by United Nations Populations Fund here for the celebration of the first World Day of Afro-descendant people. So it's going to be international meeting of Afro-descendant leaders around the topics that are in the International Decade for Afro-Descendants happening starting next week all the way to the end of next weekend in Cahuita, and some of it is going to be happening in San Jose as well. But there's a big effort happening, of course, through the Office of the First Vice President and through, again, the United Nations, Populations Fund, to make sure that we have an important commemoration of that first World Day for Afro-Descendants people next Tuesday, August the 31st. Yeah, that's a bit about what's on my mind right now.
Pero yeah, prima, how do I follow that? Like, yeah? No, I can't follow that. Hello everybody. Honestly speaking, I love that each of our works span so many different arenas. My work specifically is bridging the gap between the diaspora, specifically the Afro-Costa Rican diaspora, through ethnic identity development and language. There's so much to be said, and I am simply I would identify myself como una hija de la diáspora, a daughter of the Limonense diaspora, raised in Brooklyn, New York. And if you were raised in Brooklyn in the 90s, your options for Black Latina was Panama. Those were your options, right? And so like I got in where I could fit in, right? Like I wasn't Colonense, but Limonense close enough. But what has really happened, what I have seen, and some of this work began in 2015 when I went viral, and also discovered an article that Dr. Gordon-Chipembere had written for the Tico Times about that experience. This is what has really facilitated my work. There's this deep yearning within the Afro. Oh, hi, Madrina. I see you. Hi.
Hi, my love. I
Hi.
Do your thing.
Okay, Regina, put yourself back on mute. Thanks. All right. So, like, there is this deep yearning that has happened within the United States of America amongst Black Afro-Costa Ricans, right? This yearning to kind of be able to be seen in the narrative and to be seen in the narrative Afro-Latinidad. And so when I say naming ourselves, when I say that we are naming ourselves in love and liberation, we are actually carving out and making space for our narratives to be told, both here in the United States and back home in Limón, Costa Rica, right? Or in Costa Rica, period. One of the things I'd like to think that I'm continuing the work of Eulalia Barnard, and her passing hit me in a particular way for many different reasons, but it was because, yeah, Shirley, you have to put yourself on mute.
Wait.
Yeah, you're not on
Tia
mute.
Lynn, Tia Lynn.
Go ahead, unmute yourself, Angeley. I muted everybody. Go ahead.
I love us so much. I love us so much. And so the extension, honestly, of my work is bridging the gap specifically through language and bridging the gap between the diaspora, figuring out how that we can continue to connect with one another, how we can continue to develop, how we continue to unpack identity development and understand what it means for those of us in the United States or abroad to feel displaced from the greater Afro-Costa Rican narrative, but still be a part of it. And even within that space, to understand how, not the loss, but to understand how the fading of Limonense Creole could potentially have us lose a portion of that very, very important ethnic identity development as well, right? So constantly having the conversation about what it means for us, for those of us who do not speak Spanish, what it means for us to interact with the family who does speak Spanish, and what it means for us, those within the context of Costa Rica, to perhaps not engage in the Limonense Creole in the same way. How do those things affect our identity development? It's large, it's big. I didn't know that this would where I would end up, but doing this work of bridge work is necessary, and it is one of the things that makes me most happy. And I'll give a quick little story as to how I ended up at this work. My family is originally from Limón, Costa Rica, Baquetraque, Rhone Crossing, right? And whenever I say Baquetraque, my uncle says La Línea Real, right? And it is something that has stuck with me my entire life. But I can always remember when you're coming into Limon, you pass Backtrack, and it is literally called Crossings, and it is where it was, and it's Backtrack because that was the railroad that was behind, not the main one, but it is called Crossings. And so I think for those of us who identify as part of the greater Afro-Costa Rican diaspora, many of us has found our place in the crossings, ni de aquí, ni de allá. But rather than have it be something that hamper us, rather than have it be something that takes away from us, it has really become something that has says we have created our own narrative and have learned to dwell in the crossings. And so the work that I am currently doing is helping us figure out how to dwell in the crossings together.
Wow, that is amazing. I just want to add there. I think Angeley, you helped like pull everything together. What I heard Dr. Gordon-Chipembere say and Tanisha say, and what you added, because you know you all's work, it is so expansive. It's not only in one space. You know, deep academic research that moves into historical fiction and then in public writing, but then also the political aspect and organizing, but then also, as you mentioned, Angeley, the diaspora in the Costa Rican diaspora, particularly in the United States, into Brooklyn. And, you know, I'm a person of Panamanian heritage on my father's side. And it's interesting that you say that, you know, the option was Panamanian, but I think, you know, you bring up very strong points to what I heard Tanisha say about this structural violence that doesn't allow Black people to have opportunities. And I think when we think about why these diasporas have to become diasporas and have to move to different places, you know, and what does it mean to be a Black person migrating to Costa Rica in the 1880s after a history of enslavement in that place, and then not having the opportunity to make the life that they want, and then having to migrate to what is the United States, and what does that look like? So I think, you know, you all bring a lot to this conversation here. And I guess my question after saying all that is, knowing that we're in an interconnected space with people from all over the world tuning in right now, and what is it do you think we need to know? Those of us who particularly aren't Costa Rican and who aren't Black Costa Rican, that need to know about Costa Rican and Black Costa Rican identity or issues that are currently or historically have happened or happening, that would be to benefit for this audience tonight. And any of you can take that. And thank y'all for y'all's work too. Dope. Nobody should leave here tonight without being able to do something, an action item off of because they have interest points for all of your interests on this call. You have a plethora of things to pick from to support. So y'all might continue great honoring guests.
Just to add to that point, you want academic shit, they got you covered. You want whole shit, they got you covered. Like, they got the whole spectrum. Like, you got it.
So feel free.
Can I jump in? So Javier, that question is really interesting. I guess even before that, I was thinking about what Angeley said about sort of this crossing. I really love that metaphor, like this idea of, you know, of being of the place and at the crossroads, right? So we understand about life at the crossroads, right? That's Black life in the world. But I think in many ways, to answer your question, Javier, is like, what do you need to know? I mean, a lot of people obviously need to know that Costa Rica is not an island, right? That's the first thing, right? I mean, just to get it there. I'm sorry, that has been like a conversation that happened today. Like, oh, how is your island? What?
Isthmus.
Okay, right.
It is an isthmus.
Right.
This is not this complicated, y'all.
Exactly. But I was thinking about like, when I moved, so I was born in Brooklyn to a Costa Rican mother and a Panamanian father. So I am really at the crossroads there, right? But I moved to Costa Rica with my family 7 years ago, and that was an intentional choice of leaving the United States with my husband and 2 children, specifically looking at the temperature that we knew was going to come post-Obama. So it was a very intentional choice where we walked, we did not run. We walked with dignity, but we made a decision to come to Costa Rica. And it was the best decision of our lives in terms of raising our Black children here. No place is perfect. But I think in looking at the work that I do, I was thinking about bridges, right? So Angelie's talking about crossings, but I was thinking about bridges. And one of the things that really inspired a lot of my work is thinking about, well, most people think Afro-Costa Ricans are people who come from Limon, right? Or come from the Caribbean, they're Afro-Caribbean in descent. And many people are still really confused about, well, were they slaves? Were they not? No, they were different. They were not enslaved people, even though the experiences they had, obviously, in many cases had the trappings of enslavement in many ways. But that's a whole different conversation. But I think what I would love people to understand was that there was, for over 200 years, prior to the first Afro-Costa Rican officially coming from Jamaica on the Lizzie, right, which was the ship that brought over the first group of laborers, is the fact that there were people of African descent living and loving and working, and many of them were free, and they were negotiating their lives in colonial Cartago and in other spaces. But it's really important to understand that the first people who came, people of African descent to come to Costa Rica, were not people who came at the turn of the 20th century as immigrants, but there were people here already building this country, right? They already had their forms of veneration, very deep spiritual African practices that they brought with them. And I think that that is very much something that I would love people to understand.
That's awesome, because I was going to say something similar. And I think that this is the plight of every Black Costa Rican, right? Is this thing about like getting out of the box where like everyone is single culture, mostly Jamaican Caribbean, and that's sort of the only recognized Black heritage in the context of Costa Rica. What I would say that I would want people to know, and as I said, highly related to Dr. Gordon-Chipembere's intervention, is that what we recognize as Costa Rican culture today, which is the Guanacastecan culture on the Pacific side, is heavily influenced by African culture. So many of those cultural markers that we recognize as the typical Costa Rican culture, which have been sort of engulfed in these narratives around mestizaje precisely, which we recognize as mestizo culture, the way that they dance, the actual food that they eat, and even many of the words that they use are very influenced by African culture. So there's a strong African component in what Costa Ricans recognize as the Costa Rican national culture, although that's been shaped by a narrative that that is mestizo culture as opposed to being African culture. So I would say that just this notion around really not being able to think about a Costa Rican as a project, Costa Rican as a nation, without that African component, which was here from the inception, right?
I'm glad you brought that up, and I'm gonna throw it to you, Ange, about the Pacific, because that the focus tends to be on the Atlantic, rightfully so, absolutely, yes. And the Pacific has Black spaces, and I know that Dr. Gordon-Chipembere speaks at length about this, of how, and we also at AfroLatinx Travel do as well, with Panama being a major human trafficking port for the Pacific. And within our classes, we talk about, you can literally draw a line from Mexico all the way down to Chile, and your finger will cross all Black spaces, all on the Pacific. And it's a very, very relevant point to bring up, that a lot of these cultural markers that people say is Latino is actually African expression. And we have to name that because we just do, because the colonial hegemonic project, its goal is to deprioritize those differences, to deprioritize Blackness in favor of this imaginary national unified mythical identity. And so we have to continue to name Afro, Afro, Afro. And so that is a thread throughout this region.
Yeah, and I think, I'm going to echo what everyone else has said. It is really the continuation, the work that has to happen not only in Costa Rica, but we'll center it in Costa Rica. And I'm going to take it slightly out of the actual country and talk about US based Costa Ricans, because that is what I am. And I think that that's important that I highlight that as well. But the general Africaneity that exists within the country must be named continuously. Must, and I'm going to repeat that, the Africaneity that exists within the country needs to be named consistently at all times, because again, like what Tanisha said, what we have come to understand as greater Tico culture is deeply rooted in our Africaneity, and it is ours, right? And I think that kind of goes into what I would say as well. If I think about what I would like to say to the world about Costa Rica, is that this kind of, and Dash, you just touched on it, this kind of greater we are one. Child, I hesitate with this because I ain't in Costa Rica, but I'm gonna go ahead and say it. This greater we are one, like we are one country, we are one love, we are all. Listen, that's bullshit. It's bullshit, baby. It ain't true, right? It's not like so. I'm very happy that we have Black History Month in Costa Rica. That's necessary, and until Kokoria is no longer an issue of debate, it will always be necessary. And point blank, period, full stop. That's the truth. Dia del Negro is important to me. It is deeply important to me. My family is deeply entrenched within that work. I am the legacy of that work. Excuse me, Madrina, you're here. But fuck that. I don't just want a day. I don't just want a month. I need some structural change. Right? Because one of the things that I see when I travel to Limon is the brain drain that is happening. That there is no Limon. I take this from Eulalia Minerva, a stringberry deer. My mamá está internada en Limón, Costa Rica. She is buried in Limón, Costa Rica. So I am always being called back there. There is never a moment that I am not being called back there. But every time that I hit there to look and to see the structural issues that exist within a province that the rest of the country would not be successful without is heartbreaking. And so for me, the conversation that I will continue to have in every place is to amplify that. One, again, to Tanisha's point, to Dr. Gordon-Chipembere's point, the Africaneity that exists in Costa Rica predates the West Indian migration. And that must be named, and it must be honored, and space must be held for that. Because what you have come to know as your Tico culture is it belongs to us, to Afro descendants. One. Two, symbolic gestures are beautiful. I am grateful for them. They are necessary. Hale and amen. And run me some money. Run me some resources. Run me things that will make it so that my little cousin can be in Limon, Costa Rica, and can grow up there with all of the beauty that I grew up with all of the things that made me feel good about being a hija de la diaspora. So that's possible if that's what they want to do. It should not be that for opportunities, many Afro-Costa Ricans that are in Limon must leave there for those opportunities. And again, my framework comes from there. So I want to be clear about that. I can only speak to my framework, and I will not endeavor, because I am very clear. I am a US-based diasporic Costa Rican, right? Afro-Costa Rican, and that is nuanced and complicated. But what I would love to see, again, run me some money, run me coin, and run me resources. That's what I want to see. And quite frankly, that conversation is what we're always saying. And that's what I love that's the one thing that I do know about those of us who are engaged in the work. Wherever we are, when we're really engaged in the work, we always say, run me the money, give me the resources, because talk is cheap. The symbolism is beautiful. Amen. But talk is cheap. What does it mean for there to be structural change that exists and exists and exists, and that is long serving, that is lifelong? What does that mean? And so I think that would be the most important thing. And then specifically, this is for my US-based Afro-Costa Ricans. I just want to send a quick affirmation. Whether you speak Spanish or not, it don't make you any less Latino if Latinidad is something that you want to hold on to. but I want to encourage you to let Latinidad go because it ain't necessary. So I just like, let it go. It's okay. It's okay. There is a richness in our own culture. We can let it go, y'all. But listen, let me just go ahead and affirm. I get it. I get it. Language is a problem, is an issue. It doesn't make you any less part of the Afro diaspora, the Afro Costa Rican diaspora. It doesn't make you any less. And I just want to go ahead and take a moment to publicly say that, because I know that that is a hurt and that is a pain that I have heard consistently from many Afro Costa Ricans of the diaspora. The inability to access language, whether it be the Limonense Creole or Spanish, it makes you feel less of a part of that narrative. But let's be clear, whether you were in Limon, whether you were in Costa Rica, San Jose, wherever, if your parents were Afro-Costa Rican, your house was Afro-Costa Rican. And so like there are things that are so unique to us that it does not in any way, shape, or form strip you of identity. And I want to go ahead and just say that, because that love is necessary as well.
I think you touched on a very important, well, all of you touched on the very important points of this overblown, look, I'm gonna keep it 100 because I always do. This overblown narrative of ni de aquí, ni de allá. And I think that conversation needs to be expanded. You are 40 years old. You need to find a space where you belong. Because from my point of view of it, I think the not being from here or not being from there is a through line. It's not a wall. I feel that there are missed opportunities to forge relationships with your community that people are overlooking, because you have to get in where you fit and you have to build community where you are. And I think the spaces that we do have community are often overlooked for this narrative of, I am not blank enough for them. I am not blank enough for them. And it's like, okay, so then don't go to them.
And I'm going to interject really quickly, if that's okay. That's why I started my narrative with crossings, right? Like, it's okay for us to dwell within that. And that isn't just something that is something that exists not only for those of us in the diaspora abroad, but that also exists for what Africanity looks like in Costa Rica, right? So like and it's complex, y'all. It's complex. You are not any less Afrodescendiente if you didn't grow up in Limon. You're not, right? Like, and your narrative still has to be honored. So it's complicated, and not complicated. It's nuanced, and that's okay. It can be nuanced, but again, we want to say, like Dash said, if the crossing is where you dwell, then dwell there, and be happy there. Because I want to be clear, when I get on the phone with Dash, we jump from Brooklyn to Panama Creole to Limon Creole to like some type of Spanglish, and it's beautiful and it's great. The first time that I met Tanisha, the first time Tanisha commented on something I wrote, it was because I was like, "Is uno spell uno?" And it became like and it became a debate. Like, all right, so you spell it with 2 N, you spell it with 1, you say about oh, you said about you, and that kind of crossing. That's how Tanisha became prima, right? Because Tanisha didn't know me from nowhere. But that moment of being able to say, yo, or even being able to say to each other, like, what did your mother just say to you? I don't know. It's not English. It may not be. I don't know. She just said, look, my godmother said to me the other day, not the one that's on right now, but she said, yo, y'all fit. Why crooked and cut straight? What? I don't know what that means. But there is something that is beautiful to be in the crossings of that. And to be able to call Dash and be like, Dash, is what this woman just said to me? And Dash like, I don't
And
know.
I'm like, that makes all the sense in the world. What are you talking about? Get yourself together.
Right. But this is, again, when you're in the crossings, you get to reach out to the other cousin and be like, did you catch that? Because I didn't, right? That is the beauty of the work that we are doing. Whether we are doing structural change, wherever we're doing it, we are bridging that crossing, right? Like, I don't know, that's beautiful. I know Dr. Gordon-Chipembere, look, she loved me. She edited a paper for me at midnight. You hear me? And then roasted me and was like, sis, I don't know how to tell you this, but this work is not engaging. In other words, I have met you, and what you wrote does not match who I met. And I was like, but again, that crossings, right? That is what I want to talk about, the greater Black Costa Rican like family. We family, and that's beautiful. That is a beautiful thing for me, right?
Was already ball led. If you weren't ball led before, she
Right.
snatched
Nah,
all your
yeah.
edges.
Yeah.
Like Dr.
After she was done, with that paper, she snatched my whole edges. I was like, okay, Lord, I'm clearly not ready. Like I'm gonna go back to the
The two
drawing.
hairs you have.
The look piece I hear.
But Dr. Gordon-Chipembere is like the master editor of all times. Shout out to Javier, clap harder, Javier, because because she helped on that PhD road. Clap harder.
She edited my dissertation, so I want to interject quickly and do a plug that Dr. Gordon-Chipembere has an amazing editing services that you all should look into, especially if you do work focused on Black people at a diasporic level, because it matters whose eyes are looking at your paper. And as we're talking about the perspective, so y'all make sure to hit up her services when you need an editing. And I can attest, having gone through other editors, that Dr. Gordon-Chipembere has the juice with the editing. Hit up those services.
She will also roast you. She will also roast you. I just want to.
Very important service.
She's a true tia. She's it's not ready yet. It's like, I made, for me, I still have not made a pot of rice and peas for my godmother because she gonna roast me. That was Dr. Gordon-Chipembere.
And it will never happen.
Never.
It will never happen. Not doing it. You want to jump in, Dr. Gordon-Chipembere and Tanisha? We're gonna close out in a few minutes, but I want everyone to say what they want to share with the audience. And right before we go, I'm going to also share some links for some mutual aid projects that everyone has going on.
I was just thinking when Angeley was talking about like being from like in the crossroads and just not knowing, especially like exactly where you're from. And she mentioned it precisely when she said, I guess that's a common experience to like all Afro-descendant people, where you're like, even if you're born and bred in Costa Rica, you're still, the Blackness always has you placed on the outside of something. So people will approach you. And even me, I've never actually lived anywhere else. People keep assuming that I don't live here. People keep telling me to leave. People keep saying, like, where are you from? It's always the Blackness is always placed somewhere else, like on the outside of what sort of the national identity is. So the other day, like actually during the Olympics, I was continuously having this feeling where like, yeah, I'm from Costa Rica, but I'm also from Jamaica, because like from my 8 great grandparents, like 6 of them came from Jamaica. And I'm also from Africa because I'm like part of this larger thing where like I'm a community with other people, many times more so than I am the people with the people that I've actually always lived around, which is like the white mestizo Costa Ricans, right? So there's this thing about being Black is always a question about where you're actually from. And it's always about being from multiple spaces and places at the same time.
Excuse me, I was thinking about that too, this idea of how do I name myself, right? Because other people are going to be quick to name you always, right? And so it's really about how you name yourself. And I thought about that, I have never called myself an Afro-Latina because in actuality, if I'm going into, but lots of people do, so you got to flex. If the resources are coming that way and you can help the community, you're going to jump on that title. It's whatever. Let's be practical. Let's be smart. It's about helping the people, right? But I think that, as Tanisha said, as we go back and back, my people are Jamaican, and in that complexity itself, that's a whole British colonial enterprise that we can't even touch. It's too hot, right? But that's where these people come from, I mean, my grandfather didn't speak Spanish. And so it didn't make him any less a person who deeply participated in Limon and building Limon, And so I think about that, particularly as I come come to Costa Rica and make a choice. I'm a girl from Brooklyn, and I hear Angeley in thinking about the diaspora, but I've also lived in other places. I lived in South Africa, and that's where I did my doctoral work because I understood that there were some other things about Africanness and Blackness that I needed to engage my mind in that wasn't going to happen in any of the Ivy halls of the United States. And I needed people really to put me on task and say, you really need to think about identity in ways that are more global. And so I guess when my takeaway is this, is that yes, we are part of a bigger conversation. When we talk about resources, when we talk about reparations, when we talk about being in the diaspora, understand that these conversations are not unique to Afro-Costa Ricans or Black Costa Ricans. This is the Black identity. This is Blackness in the world. And so the thing that I think is most empowering is that there are many of us, and all we need to do is create alliances and coalition and keep doing this work and being in conversation and understand that we create our family, right? And so we are all family today doing this work and supporting each other. And that's what's most important. For me, it's about lifting other people up. So even though, yes, I roasted you, Angeley, a little bit, I did it because I love you and I want your success. And you are now my family. And I look out for you because I want the best for you. And Javier, Dr. Wallace, you have no idea how my heart sings because not only are you, a role model because of the work that you're doing, because it's dangerous work that you're doing. You're calling out some people and some systems that folks want to keep covered because their hands are deep in the money, right? But it's more personal than that because you're Panamanian. I'm like, okay, maybe so. I know we're cousins somewhere, and I love that. I love creating family. So that's I guess my takeaway: the idea that we are part of a bigger pot of Blackness that's not just Costa Rican based or in the diaspora.
I think I love that gave me chills, right? I think one of the things that I love about that is the reality that we get to choose who we move into this eternity, this generation as. We get to choose that. And we get to choose who we name ourselves as. We get to choose who we call family. And so, I can sincerely say that all five of us, all four of people currently on this panel, are those that I call kin. Because all skin folk ain't kinfolk. Everybody that look like me ain't riding with me, right? Everybody that's que somos familia, we're not all family. And I know that, right? So the ones that you can identify and say, we are in this work together, because to your point, and I want to stay there for a minute because it hit me. You said that Javi's doing dangerous work, and we all are. Let me be clear. This shit gonna cost you. It's gonna cost you. And that's why even chosen family matters. Because sometimes it's gonna cost you family. When you start speaking truth to power, it's going to cost you. And so it's dangerous. So when I say that this is my kinfolk, que somos familia, I mean that. And I go back to the letter that Baldwin wrote Angela Davis when she was in jail. And he was clear towards the end of it where he said, listen, we are part of you. I'm paraphrasing. We are part of you because we know that if they come for you in the night, they will come for us in the morning. And I say that to say, I'm always going to ride for Javi. I'm always going to have his back. It don't matter because this is dangerous work. I'm always going to look out for Dash. I'm always going to find bundles to send her because this is dangerous work. If Natasha asked me to bring some shea butter, I'm bringing some shea butter because this is dangerous work. Because the reality of the situation, Tanisha, what you need, sis, this is dangerous work. So how do we love each other through it? How do we care for each other through it? And that is a conversation beyond just Afro-Costa Rican identity. That is a conversation that Blackness, Africanity has to continue to have with one another. I have no allegiance to any country. I have no allegiance to the US. I have no allegiance to Costa Rica. I have allegiance to the boroughs and provinces that raised me. I have allegiance to the people that raised me. And so beyond this conversation of Afro-Costa Rican identity, which is necessary on many levels, what, if anything, we leave with today? Leave with the fact that somos familia. We are the African family. And at the end of the day, that's really what matters. So figure it out and figure out how to ride for each other cross borders, because there will come a time when all we will have, and I would dare say the time is now, child, these church roots are showing, but where all we have is each other.
Angeley about to make me cry.
I'm good at that. It's like low key part of my ministry.
No, it's like that's what you aim to do, which I'm like, I get annoyed at that because it's like, don't make me feel feelings. But what Angeley and Dr. Gordon-Chipembere said rings true, because we're not talking about a nation. We're not talking about a place or a language. We're talking about a people. And I say this all the time, what Tanisha had brought up, how Blackness is always pegged as the forever foreigner. And this is why I always remind people that patria, homeland, what has homeland done for Black people lately? What has homeland
Not a
done?
goddamn thing.
They owe everything to Black people. And so this...
Wait, Dash, but, and to that, my cousin is on, her name is Trace Bennett. We were in San Jose, in a store, getting some things for me to bring back. My cousin, born and raised Costa Rica, the lady literally asked us, so where are you guys from? And there is a way that, I really respect Costa Ricans, is the blink and stare, right? Like you just kind of blink and stare and kind of silently tell the person that their comment was unwise. And she blinked and she stared and she said, Becky. And then we kept it moving. But I just remember in that moment, I remember I wanted to light things on fire, right? But recognizing that wasn't the time or the place, but to have to the forever foreigner. So again, what has Patria done for us? When in your own country, they question whether or not you belong there.
Right, and it's like, no, you show me your credentials, because I know that canal and railroad exists because of my great grandfather, who spoke English. And so this thing with the language, I don't think that should be the starting point. You know what I'm saying? As all of us have expressed, because all of these are colonizer languages either way. And what I know is that some of my ancestors who built this entire fucking country spoke English. So where do we go from here? And so I really am.
Me God, I'm not going to cuss me though, because we've been cussing on this thing the whole time. She gonna tell me about this later.
I'm really ecstatic that we are centering the Blackness that is the through line through our legacy and our memories. It's not a nation. The idea of Latinidad has always been the hegemonic project of white Europeanness that aim to turn us into subjects. And when we resist that, we belong to ourselves, and are accountable to one another. And so I'm not sure, I had to step away for a second. I'm gonna share the screen of the resources, but also because I had brought up Juan Santamaria in the first slide. Did y'all reference that whole thing? And I'll just mention it really shortly, because I think it's kind of hilarious if it wasn't so dangerous, because the overarching narrative of this dangerous narrative, actually, Javier, can you make me host again? This dangerous narrative of mestizaje, of we're Latino, what it does is it brokers space for the erasure of Blackness. And am I host again? Okay. There we go. And it allows others to tell our stories. And so actually Javier has intimate experiences with the idea of Juan Santamaria who is, and this is a quote from his trip to, where were you that they said that you got the real, but on Santa Maria?
A la abuela.
Uh-huh. And I was doing research and they said that 15% of Afro-Costa Ricans live in a la abuela, right? And so the picture on the right, I think it was that this picture was rejected by the Costa Rican government because he was too dark. That Juan Santa Maria was too dark to put in the museum. I'm like, dark? His hair? And the thing is that he was Afro-descended, but somehow he turned mestizo, the same as La Negrita. She's also depicted in some, and you can pull my coattails if I'm misspeaking, Natasha, that she had been constructed as indigenous at some times. You gotta pull my coattails on that?
Yes. So for one second, it was about who found her, right? So at first it was someone of Afro descent, a parda, essentially a free Black, and then in the official basilica now, the visual narrative, the written narrative, the church narrative is that it was a mestiza young girl named Juana Maria who found her.
No, the pulling coattails. Pull my coattails all day and night, because this is collective work, because I knew something in the history was they were reconstructing something. And it happens so often that you're like, wait, was it this one or that one or the next one? But it's extremely critical that we allow our coattails to be pulled. And like it was mentioned, we do this in love and liberation. And so here are some further resources for y'all to get acquainted with more of Dr. Natasha Gordon-Chipembere's work and editing work, and some further resources and readings, some suggestions from Javier and from Dr. Carmen Richardson Miller, and also to join us on this Thursday, same time, same place, for our chat on Black Salvadoran Month, led by two Afro-Salvadoran researchers and scholars and just general members of the Afro-Salvadoran community, which again is another space that has been constructed as no African history came through here. We already know Maury said it's a lie. We've been through this. We understand that every single last country in the Americas has an African or African histories, plural. And I have also dropped in the chat, let me go back. So you can take a screenshot of this screen if you like. I also dropped in the chat some of the links for mutual aid for all of our panelists. Give generously. Also our ongoing mutual aid with Asociación Deportiva Curundú, which is the football league that we team up with. And this year they had 3 teams. This year was the first year they had a girls team, and 5 of them made the national team of Panama. So clap it up for that, because clap it up. Because that is amazing. And all of this money, the links that we send, go directly to the people. This is not no application. Send us a sample of your nose hair, send the finger of your firstborn, because they always doing that, and then you get nothing. And it's for a grant that's like $52. So just know that your money goes directly to the people and organizations who need those resources, and please give generously, spread the word around, send it to your enemies, your ex, in this case, text your ex, tell him to donate. He got money, I think. Javier, do you want to leave with any? I mean, look, some of them.
Why are you like this?
I mean, most of them wrong, but all right, fine. Go ahead, Javier.
No, the only thing I want to end with tonight is making sure that we show our gratitude to Dash Harris Machado for the work that she is doing with facilitating these diaspora.
Evelyn, where the air horn, Evelyn?
Well, where's Evelyn with the air horn? It's so needed it's like for real needed right now. And I say this from a place of somebody who is in academia now, and understanding how desperate people are to have. Go ahead. Who got the horn? I heard it. There you go. Dash, you can toot your own horn if you got it on your phone too, because it's needed. So I just want to make sure that we recognize and elevate the work that Dash is doing, because it's so important. And there's many people who would love to facilitate conversations like these, but just cannot. And they cannot because they don't have the access to the individuals that can make this happen and make it accessible. So understand, if y'all are here, that this is not something that is easily put together, that it takes years of labor. It takes a lot of heartache and pain to get up and want to do these type of things for this. So we need to make sure that we continue to support Dash Harris Machado in this work and facilitating these conversations in all the different ways we can. I'm always surprised. I walk around, people are like, "Oh yes, I Dash on Twitter." I'm like, "Damn, what's her last name?" Since y'all like, y'all know what's her last name.
You know, ain't it funny when folks act like they know Dash, and you be like, "No, but I know Dash." You know,
what's her last name?
That's right. So, you know, Javi being good, the good deacon, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna say it, God, run her some coin, y'all. Drop your cash app, sis. Run her some coin, right?
Yes.
Like times is hard.
Gracias,
So,
Dash.
like,
What you said, Tanisha?
Gracias.
I said gracias because those Twitter streets are lonely as hell. I'm so happy I found you. Like I seeing people post all kinds of stupid stuff. So now that you're there, I'm like, you know, at least someone else is, you know, up to debunking all this shit, all these Latino talking points about not being racist because you're brown and all that shit. So I appreciate that.
right, because y'all do be running these Twitter streets, the two of y'all. Like,
We
I'll be over on Instagram chilling and dancing to Barris Hammond. Y'all be running these streets.
Like, did you see that? Did you see that, sis? Yes, and I think it's important to speak truth to power because it's asserting our personhood and our humanity. I think over and over and over, what is this work if it's not forging towards humanity? And Black folks, Afro-descended folks have been systematically denied humanity. And like I always say, my normalcy has always been Blackness. That has always been my point of reference. I learned anti-Blackness as an adult. I didn't know what that was. And it was all thanks to my mother. She was my first advocate, and she continues to be my advocate in centering Blackness and centering our histories and centering our humanity and affirming our personhood. And this was, you know, thank you, Javier, and thank you all, Dr. Natasha Gordon-Chipembere, Angeley Crawford Gibb, Tanisha Swaby, and everyone that came out tonight, because like I said, it's ongoing collective work. I'm only a reflection of you, and spread the word. I mean, we have these free events. We also have paid events that we also invite you to come to. Our next Verano Negro, Black Latin American History and Contemporary Topics will be September 7th to 10th, and it's ongoing. So thank you all. There'll be a follow-up email with some of the links. Follow us on AfroLatinx Travel, follow Black Austin Tours, LaNegraSpeaks, Bani, Twitting Ta. Dr. Gordon-Chipembere, you have Instagram, which is your entire name.
My entire name, all 12 pounds.
She be in these Instagram streets. So thank y'all for joining. And hopefully we'll see you on Thursday, 9 p.m. EST for our conversation on Afro El Salvador. And bye. See y'all later.
Bye.